I reflect back and think I've had over 20 years of formal schooling, and no matter how much you think you're prepared to go to the other side of the test, it's always there's no way you can quite prepare for it as much as you think you know. But being in those shoes is a little bit different. All this being said, when unsolicited moments arose in which I felt I was making a real difference in a deep and abiding way in a student's life, a new appreciation for my role and a personal revitalization would occur. Maybe the most notable instance of such an event occurred with a very engaged student in the last class I taught on the theology of the human person from a Christian perspective. A working professional who was closer in age to me than most of the students, she told me that her experience as the course progressed was one of a revelation and a deeper understanding of things she already knew intellectually. She went on to say that she had developed a relationship with God over the years through the sacraments, reading, retreats, etc., but that in the recent past, she was struggling with her spirituality. It was through my class that she was brought to a higher level of understanding what it means to be a Christian. She went on to tell me that it is difficult to explain a spiritual experience other than to say it is like the proverbial light bulb lighting up. She spoke of a deeper realization of the story of creation, the importance of not only the soul, but also of the significance of the body, which is a very big part of this course. And we did take a large part of John Paul II's Theology of the Body and incorporate it in here. We read a lot of that. An understanding of the power of the devil and his angelic nature, and a deeper appreciation of grace. But most significant to her was the realization that our attraction to each other lies within the mystery of creation. This was particularly pertinent to her relationship with her husband of many years. Through this class, she learned that their already strong relationship was now beginning to transcend into a deeper love and understanding as to who they were as a couple within that mystery. She came to realize that their attraction to each other comes from God, it is a gift, and it is unique. She was astounded to come to the realization that the attraction she had towards her husband lay within the mystery of God's intelligent design. She was then able to apply the same appreciation for all relationships with which God had blessed her. Understanding the mystery of creation helped her to look at everything with a deeper respect and appreciation and awe. What a profound impact the course had on her. It was gratifying to me that the time and thought I put into the lectures, readings, assignments, and discussions could evoke such a strong reflection and deep understanding, and that it could make a difference personally and be applied to one's life in a practical and meaningful way. I started this little talk bemoaning the fact that the impact of one's teaching efforts is not always immediately apparent. In this case, the student provided affirmation several times during the course, but only when it was completed did I realize the full significance of the class on her. As a teacher of theology, I take comfort in knowing that by presenting the truth faithfully, I am planting a seed for the Spirit to water. I may never realize the impact of it on individual students in this life, but in striving to follow the Lord ever more perfectly in the important task of teaching, I hope that I am helping to do His work. Now, going about this important task requires constant learning in one's field and ongoing consideration and refinement of teaching methodology. Allow me to provide a few key points I found most important based on my own experience and reflection. As I mentioned already, I've had over 20 years of formal schooling, not counting various seminars and certifications I've attended over the years. When I made my career switch to theology, knowing that my plan was to someday teach, I made a point from the very beginning of my studies to note, ongoing, what worked pedagogically, and that's a fancy word for the art of teaching, and what didn't work pedagogically for me in the classroom as a student. Now, these ended up being quite lengthy lists, so I won't be able to share everything in the short time we have, but I would like to mention a few key points that I found most important in practice. I don't know if there are any classroom instructors here, but regardless, I believe what I speak about here will be useful to you in many of your day-to-day interactions, whether at home, in the workplace, or out and about. At least I hope so. And I hope that as I go through these, that you'll consider that. Again, even if you're not a formally an instructor, maybe it has to do with your children or someone who's interested in the faith, or whatever the case might be. First, not many of you should become teachers, my brothers, For you realize that we will be judged more strictly, for we all fall short in many respects. This quote from the letter of St. James is not meant to frighten any teachers or prospective teachers, but it is an important caution. One of my favorite Bible commentaries says, in part about this passage, the prospect of a stricter judgment should restrain teachers from uttering careless words and teaching what they themselves do not understand. The importance of proper preparation and careful expression of ideas is stressed here. Humility is key. Note that the passage says, we all fall short. There is no perfect instructor. Realizing this should make us, or at least on this earth there's no perfect instructor. Realizing this should make us strive even harder to recognize that by our humility, we come to acknowledge that the source of all truth is God, and we endeavor to convey this truth, and only the truth, in a way that is most impactful. Constantly striving to know Him through divine revelation and His church is imperative not only in formal teaching, but in all of our personal interactions. The second flows from the first, prayer. For the teacher of religion, the kneeling theology of Hans Urs von Balthasar, a very famous theologian of the 20th century, and a friend of our current Pope, is the proper attitude and approach when imparting knowledge to others. During my last semester, if at all possible, I spent a short time before class in front of the Blessed Sacrament, asking the Lord to bless my students and my efforts. By being open to the inspiration of the Spirit and placing oneself and one's class in His hands, the chance for real success is far greater. Jesus is called a man of prayer because He prayed often, and He did so most intensely before the greatest challenges of His earthly life. We are called to imitate Him. The third point has to do with the value added by the teacher. Certainly a lecture portion is important, as it utilizes the instructor's educational background, research ability, and teaching skills to synthesize and distill material in a way that is hopefully interesting, understandable, and relevant. But it must go beyond that. Is critical thinking encouraged and the means to do so well taught? Are students provided with pointers on how to best study, learn, and research the material covered in this specific course? Does feedback provided on responses, assignments, essays, and papers congratulate students when their work is done well and when the insights are penetrating, while providing corrections to errors or probing questions when a thought is fuzzy, incomplete, or problematic?